you can connect to the things that you really do need out of a relationship through these experiences. So what exactly do I need? What exactly do I prefer to have in a connection? What are just things that my friends or other people are telling me, oh, well, if he's not doing this, then he clearly is not interested. We get a lot of that kind of all or nothing talk from society and from friends and from other people. And if we don't know what we want in our own hearts in terms of the relationship, then we can kind of take all of that stuff on from other people and make sort of snap judgments on somebody who might actually be putting in the work, who might actually be doing what they're trying to do, but maybe it's just not going as fast as you want it to.
Welcome to the Akashic Recordings. My name is Annette DeLu. I'm an Akashic conduit, channel, and spiritual guidance coach. What you will be hearing today is a real session with one of my clients. All the names have been changed for privacy, and of course, with their permission, we are privileged to hear these beautiful stories to allow us a small glimpse into the Akashic Records. If you would like to book a session with me and be part of the podcast, please feel free to head to my website at infinitesoullove.com. When you book your session, just make sure to check the box that you would be interested in having your session utilized for the podcast. For those of you who really wanted to sign up for Soul Discovery Workshop, I have great news for you. You can head to my website, and on the homepage, if you go to the little box that describes Soul Discovery Workshop, there is a button there that says sign up for the wait list. So if you want to be in the know and want to be the very first one to sign up for the next session of Soul Discovery Workshop online, feel free to head to my website at infinitesoullove.com. Go to that homepage, click sign up for the wait list, and send your email, phone number, as well as your first and last name. And I will make sure you get that registration email as soon as the next course is ready to launch. In addition, you will get a discount code for the early bird sign up. So if you are interested, head over there now.
This session with Hannah touches on so many different topics, one of which is her experience with what we would consider to be an avoidant attachment style or a dismissive avoidant. Throughout the discussion, we talk a little bit about how to handle those situations, how to handle the unconditional love you feel for a person, even if they are not treating you in the way in which you would like to be treated. We also discuss the aspects of evil energies. And this has to do with one of her past lives that was indicating to us what her soul purpose is. And in this previous lifetime in the Mayan culture, she was one of the people transmuting energies and getting rid of or scaring off evil energies. And in the discussion after the session, I go into a little bit of a deep dive regarding what evil energies actually are and how we can deal with them. And then finally, we talk a little bit about her family and how each person in a family unit can actually have pretty different experiences with the people in the family based on what your purpose is with them and based on your past lives.
I've kind of going through the same patterns for the most part right now, I would say. My sister went through a cancer scare this year. She just finished her chemotherapy about 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
That was kind of a random, sudden, we don't have cancer in our family. So that was a weird little hiccup, but I think everything's going to be fine.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah. But that was just just one of those things where you're like, oh, this was completely unexpected and out of the ordinary and something that I never thought would happen to me. And it didn't even happen to me. It happened to my sister.
Right. So oftentimes the journey that other people have has a lot to do with their own soul path, their own soul mission, right? So it could have been something that she was dealing with from past lives or, something else that doesn't have to do with actual lineage or actual genetics from this lifetime. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
She has gone to a lot of people and I think she's had some karma that she's dealt with, and she has a lot of conversations like this with a lot of different folks, and same thing as trying to get to sort of the root of it. But to what you were just saying, one of my questions for today, or just something I was going to ask you at some point, is just, I'm trying to figure out how it all fits together.
Okay.
all the different things. And maybe that's not even on this phone call, but something that's going on in the back of my mind constantly. I was like, how does this all work?
Like you're talking about everything? Like, how does everything work?
I know it's a broad question, right?
Yeah, it's a big question.
Well, it's kind of like, I go to a reader so I live outside Cincinnati in Northern Kentucky, and I go to her and I love her. She's great. Just her whole energy is awesome. And she's kind of like a therapist for me in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk about past lives. We'll talk about patterns. She'll bring up God and Jesus. We'll bring up energy. It's just, there's like all these things, right? Floating in the air, and it's all called different things, but all similar at the same time. Okay. How does it kind of fit? Parallel timelines, zodiac stuff.
So we can certainly dive into a lot of these questions and get some answers for you. If you want to tell me what other things you would like to cover for today, and then we can get started.
I think one of my big questions that I have is I have this reoccurring pattern relationship. And so I'm just kind of wondering what the purpose of that relationship is. And if that's something from maybe a past life. The other big thing, which I'm sure most people ask you, or a lot of people ask you, is just like, what is the reason that I'm here? Like, what is my soul's purpose?
Okay.
Those are sort of the two big ones. There's a little bit of me that I don't know how you typically do this, but I'm very hesitant to ask about like the future, because I feel like there's stuff that's going to happen like regardless, and people have free will and everything else. And so I don't necessarily want somebody to read the future for me or like tell me about future stuff, but just more understanding of what is happening now and why. I guess I don't want to necessarily know a prediction of the future or whatever else, whatever I need to know, whatever the spirit guides think I should know.
So one of the things that I have a tendency to do with my clients is to give them possibilities of timelines, as well as giving them an idea of where they're at in terms of life path. So if you are completely off your life path and you're going in the entirely wrong direction, of course, you're going to want to know that. If you are making even just slight decisions that maybe could be, fine-tuned or adjusted, then that's something you want to know. Those are not necessarily future predictions. It's just saying that, hey, on your current trajectory, this is something that may not serve you. So making another decision would probably be the best option. So I do things like that. I will also give potential timelines and say, okay, these are the potential timelines. These are the potential outcomes. And obviously there can be any number of outcomes after that could come that are not being seen at this moment. So when it comes to future telling, I do have a tendency to tell people that it's so changeable all the time. And one of the channeled messages I did in the beginning of this year was that the guides were telling me that we really need to not try to predict the future, because things are changing so rapidly, especially starting this year with everything going on in the astrology, everything going on Earth, and everything going on with the ascension of everyone, that things are shifting and changing very, very quickly. So if you predict something now, it might be totally obsolete by tomorrow. Right? Mm-hmm. It's about sort of the bigger picture and the wider scope of, hey, am I on my path?
Okay. That sounds great. Makes sense.
Perfect. There's a little bit of a shadow in your solar plexus. And they're saying to me, this doesn't have to do with a past life. This has to do with current life. And the shadow has to do with your self-confidence in moving forward, knowing that you're on the right path. That's part of the reason why you're asking the questions that you are. Okay. So then let's move that energy up to your heart space. Okay, so I am seeing in your heart space, there's like a half of your heart that is being removed and replaced by new energy. It is the left half of your heart. And they're saying to me that this is old energy. This is energy that you've been clearing over the course of time. Is there anything we need to do with this? Yes, there's a past life associated with this that we need to address. Okay. It's like this is the final little straw of this energy. And looking at this past life will just finally clear this for good, so you can pull in that new energy. Your crown chakra is really beautiful and open. And then I see it inverting, where it's almost like the energy is going back into your body. This is the nature of her soul and what her soul does. This is going to be part of the story of her soul purpose. Oh, okay. Got it. I've never seen that before. That's cool. Okay. They're saying don't worry about it. We'll get more information on that later. Okay, cool. I'm seeing your third eye is open. It's interesting though, because I see it's almost like covered with a piece of glass, and the glass is transparent. It's not offering up any sort of blockage. It's almost like it's a protection. You're really good at your protections, like keeping your energy yours. Does that piece of glass need to be there? Yes. Okay. Yeah, your throat chakra looks really good too. You've done a lot of work.
Have I? I don't feel like it.
Yeah, you have. It's something that is cumulative over lifetimes. So this may not be something that you feel like you've really worked hard at in terms of like doing different modalities and things like that. It's just over the course of your lifetimes, you've done a lot of hard work in clearing the things from the past. Yeah, I'm not seeing a whole lot going on in terms of your chakra system that needs to be cleared. They're asking me to ask you, if there's one thing that you struggle with the most in this life, what would it be?
There's kind of two things that come to mind. The thing that I've been dealing with over the past 6 years that I'm struggling with is this annoying unconditional love that I have for this boy, man, and the back and forth with that and trying to figure out like the why and for some reason not being able to let it go. And then I think the other thing just in general is just the vast whole of, yeah, like what should I really be doing? Like I'm working in corporate America. It's fine. I know I can make a difference in people's lives and all that kind of stuff. But is there something I should really be doing? Should I be doing something better with my time? Being in Africa and helping children? You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean. There's a reason why they asked that. I don't know what the reason is, but I guess we'll find out when we get in the records. What I would like you to do is imagine that beautiful divine light attaching to the Gaia energy in your heart space, keeping us grounded to this earth plane while we access the Akashic records. Thank you to Akula, my Akashic guide. Thank you for being here. Thank you to Archangel Metatron and Archangel Sandalphon for being here and allowing us access to the Akashic Records. Today, we are opening up the Akashic Records. Great, thank you. Where do we need to go first? Okay, I'm hearing soul purpose. So how many lifetimes do we need to look at to get her soul purpose? Just one. All right, let's take a look then, please. Is what I'm seeing, is this Mayan? Yes. Okay. So the very first thing that I'm seeing is in this incarnation that I'm looking at, you're incarnated as a man. You're fully decorated in terms of the Mayan rituals. So I'm seeing you have a giant circle plate on your chest, something square below, like below the waist. Your arms are outstretched and you have feathers and fabric and all sorts of colors coming from your arms and your shoulders going in both directions. It's going from the tops of your arms up and then bottoms of your arms down. So it's almost creating like this giant rectangle going almost all the way to the ground. And then you have some sort of headpiece on that is making your head just enormous. So it's like creating a half circle from shoulder to shoulder. The purpose of this was to make yourself bigger and more noticeable. You have plates of some sort on your shins and your legs. You are doing some sort of dance. And the way that it feels is almost like a dispelling dance, like you're dispelling evil spirits or evil energies. We know now the difference between what is considered quote unquote evil in terms of energy. And back then, there was no such knowledge about what those energies were exactly. They were just dispelled due to fear. Your soul has a natural ability for blocking energy. This is why in this particular lifetime, this was part of your job, was to prevent lower negative energies from entering into the village. There were others like you in the village doing these dances and rituals. This was something that was done on a regular basis to keep the negative energies out of the village. It's something similar to what we consider now to be putting up a bubble of protection around us or around our homes. It's a similar function, except for back then, the idea was if you were bigger and scarier than the negative energies, that it would scare them away, essentially. And that's why you had this entire getup, the costume sort of scaring off the evil spirits. And what was interesting is that you particularly knew that you didn't need to wear this costume in order to scare off the evil spirits. You knew this in your heart. You knew that it was about intention, but this was a ritual that your village did. And so it made people feel safe. If the ritual was not done exactly as it was meant to, people started getting superstitious that bad things were going to happen. So the ritual happened every month on the full moon. You started to question these negative energies and whether they actually existed. There was a part of you that didn't believe they existed, but you had heard stories and tales over the course of your life from the elders of various different things happening, but you lived in a time of peace. So you didn't see any of the negative things that had happened in the past. And you really wondered if it was all necessary, but you did your duty nonetheless. You never questioned whether or not you were going to do it. It was something you did, but it was something that you did question in terms of how necessary it was. It wasn't until later on in your life, you were a bit older, where you started seeing the evidence of what you were doing and how much of an effect it was having. There was one situation where you could see on the edge of the land, there was drought, and where your village was, it was nice and green and lush, and there was plenty of rain. And so you attributed that to the protection that you created in this village to keep the death out, which is how you looked at that desert. You looked at it as death, because prior to it being in a state of drought, it was beautiful and green and lush, and everything just died. Okay. This is part of what you are here to do. It is what your soul is, your soul signature. Your soul signature is one of protection. You protect all of the areas where you are. It is the nature of your energy. You clear the energy around you on a regular basis. You are a natural transmuter. You don't necessarily actively go in and transmute lower negative energies, but if there are lower negative energies around you, you transmute the energy just at the edges of your energy field, enough so you can clear the energy that is surrounding you. Currently, you only do this for yourself and for people who are very nearby. And nearby, we do mean location-wise, like physically nearby. This is something that you can work with. You can make your energy field bigger. You can spend time working on the strength of your energy field to help clear the spaces where you are. You may have noticed throughout your life that wherever you are, if there is conflict, if there is argument, if there is hatred, it lessens ever so slightly around you, depending on how conscious the person is. This is only part of your soul purpose. This more has to do with your nature as a soul and who you are and your natural talents and abilities. You do have a secondary soul purpose, which has to do with exploration of energy, forging new paths, identifying different ways and different paths. These two soul purposes go hand in hand because in order for you to forge new ways and new paths, you do have to be protected. Because there are times you wander into energies, dimensions, portals. You wander into places that maybe are not so pleasant. And to keep that protection around you allows you to explore these places, to identify whether or not they are places or energies that can be helped or not. It's almost as if you go in, mark the energy, mark the area, and move on. It is other souls who will come in and do the actual cleanup, if you will, or the actual healing. You are the pioneer that comes in and discovers it, marks it, and moves on. This is why we were saying you're not somebody who transmutes everything into light. You only transmute what you need to in order to do the job that you were meant to do. Okay. Is there anything else you want to share with us about soul purpose? Yes. Okay. She is not responsible for parallel dimensions. She's only responsible for this one. Okay. You were saying earlier that she does go into other dimensions and other portals and things like that. So what's the difference? There are other dimensions that are not necessarily parallel dimensions, meaning that there would be dimensions that are just slightly different than the one you're living. Those would be considered parallel dimensions. There are other dimensions entirely that contain entirely different things, different energies, different planets, different people. Those are the dimensions that she has spent time in over the course of her lifetimes. So does she do this work in portals and other dimensions in her sleep? She does. Okay. She is much more mobile of a soul than most. Astral projection is something she does very easily. Okay. How does her soul purpose translate to her physical 3D life? It can translate in many different ways. It is up to her how she uses it. As she states that she's in this corporate job right now, and everywhere she goes, she's marking energy that needs to be transmuted or cleared. She does this on a daily basis. She could do it on a larger scale if she wanted to. That would require her to travel quite a bit. It would require her to go into places that she feels drawn to going. This is for later on in her life. This is not for now. This is something she will be moving towards. Okay. All right. So I'm going to pause there. Do you have questions?
That was a lot.
Yeah.
I don't think any immediate questions come to mind other than maybe part of my original question where I know they said when I sleep, I can easily go to other dimensions. And it's interesting to me because I feel like my sleep is such shit or has been really crap for the past probably 15 years or so. I'm wondering if maybe that's part of the reason why, or if that's just, and you would know better than me, but based off of everything that was just kind of stated, what could I be doing to like help more? But it sounds like you said the healing isn't my purpose or role, so to speak. It's more just going, identifying, and just moving on. It's just, I don't know. It's all interesting. I guess I'm still digesting it all.
Sometimes it does take several days, months, years, like you're going to come back and listen to this recording and you're going to get more things out of it, each time you listen to it. The first thing I do want to say, and this is very important for you to hear, is I do not know better than you do. You are are your own soul and you know everything. Okay. I'm basically just an interpreter. I'm interpreting the energy from what I'm seeing and from what my guides are telling me in the channel. The one thing that I want everybody to really like hammer home within themselves is that you are always your highest authority. Okay. So it doesn't matter what practitioner you go to. It doesn't matter who you see, you know, within your heart, what is true for you. I want you to keep that in mind as you move forward, because sometimes you can be told things that make sense and you're like, yeah, that makes sense. I don't know what to do with that. But then something pops up and you're just like, well, this makes a lot more sense to me with this more information. Okay. You need to be sort of connected to your own heart, your own soul, in order to follow your path. And once you're connected, of course, I still check in with my mentor when I'm feeling a little lost or I feel like I can't get the answers that I'm looking for. And that's necessary sometimes because sometimes we're too close and we can't see. So we need an objective observer. The most important thing, though, is that you know in your intuition what is right and what is the right path for you. Okay. So that's the first thing. Okay. The second thing is when it comes to what you're going to be doing, what I'm seeing is that for now, like keep doing what you're doing. What you're doing right now is exactly what you need to be doing. What I'm seeing is what's going to unfold for you a little bit later in life is a way for you to be this person that's going to be able to travel and do all this work elsewhere, but it's going to come naturally. It's not going to be something that you have to like stop exactly what you're doing now and then switch gears and switch careers and switch all the things. It's like, it's going to happen so gradually and naturally that it'll just shift and change and it'll become something that you're just automatically doing. Okay. I wouldn't worry too much about like having to leave right now and make that shift and change now. Just follow your heart, follow your instincts as to where you want to be, where your soul wants to be. And as long as you follow that, you'll continue down your path. You'll be able to find it. They're being very vague about what that thing is that you're going to be doing because they don't want you to go and chase it right now because it's not the right time. There are some things that need to happen first on an energetic level that you need to do in order for you to move forward. And this is nothing that you actively need to do. There's nothing you need to heal. It's just experience. It's just something that you're going to be doing over the course of your life. Okay. Do you want to leave your job now?
My job's easy enough. You know what I mean? Like I get paid a decent amount of money and for the energy that I'm putting into it. I'm not really focused on it, I would say. So I'm kind of just going through the motions because it gives me the flexibility to do what I want to do in my daily life, to travel, like all of those other things that are of interest to me. Mm-hmm. I'm sort of just going through the motions. On the side, I have a business partner and we're starting to formulate a different business. And we've been working on it probably the past 4 or 5 years. And it hasn't 100% come to fruition, but it's moving in a good direction right now. And eventually, like I want to shift over to that entirely. And again, it will allow me the freedom to travel and do whatever I want to do, but still maintain a monetary income that helps support that. So I'm not like in a rush to leave. I kind of figured I'd gradually go to part-time, whatever, until I, built this role and a means to live by in this other avenue. Mm-hmm. So I'm not in a rush. I just know I'm not going to be there forever.
And that's beautiful because that's exactly the message that they're giving you, right? It's that gradual transition into the new thing, right? I wanted to check in on that because they want you to continue down that gradual path. And it will eventually just sort of shift and change. The one thing they want to avoid is having you make any sudden changes. Your energy field and who you are, it's like you don't do well with sudden, like anything super sudden. It's almost like too jarring for your energy. It has to be a graduation of energies from one to the next.
Okay.
Okay. Is there anything else about soul purpose that we need to know? Not at this time. Okay. And the next thing I'm being shown is your relationship. What is their soul connection? They do not have a soul connection. They have been in many lifetimes together. They are not soul family. They decided to connect in a lifetime long ago. They were helping each other with things that they needed to do, and they were just not able to extricate themselves from each other's energy fields over the course of time. Okay. Are there any past lives that we need to see between the two of them? Yes. Okay. How many? Just one. From an energetic standpoint, what I'm seeing is that you can have a tendency to attract people who want to be near you because of the way that your energy is clearing everything around you. So it's like if there's somebody who wants to be in clear energy all the time, like they will stick to you like glue. In the beginning, when you first met this soul, it was because his soul found yours to be very open and clear and easy to understand and very loving. And he needed more of that in his experience. He needed to be taught what that was like. And likewise, you needed to learn how to let somebody in to your experience and not let them consume you. The image that they're giving me is that in this previous lifetime, it's like you met and he like grabbed onto you and held on for dear life and didn't let go. Part of your energy was being almost diminished by his energy because his energy was in such a sort of darker place. And because your energy doesn't transmute fully, it just transmutes on the edges. It created a problem for you over time. But this was part of the lesson you needed to learn. You needed to learn how to let people in, let energies in, but yet not let them consume you. And this is what you've been learning from him for many, many lifetimes. You've also been teaching him how to convey what he wants to the universe, how to cultivate his own energy, his own clear energy. This is a soul contract that you've renewed over and over and over again. This has resulted in many lifetimes where you've had very unhealthy, imbalanced relationships. He's had a very controlling aspect over your life in various lifetimes as well. Okay, so let's take a look at what's going on in this current lifetime, please. It's not necessary. Why? Because she has the information she needs. Okay. Is there anything that we need to know in terms of like clearing the soul contract, clearing anything for this lifetime? No. This is something that she needs to work through on her own. Okay. Are you in a relationship with him now?
A situationship? Yes.
Okay, got it. This is why they're saying not to do anything about it in terms of clearing the soul contract, because you're still in the middle of learning how to be in your own power, in your own energy. Okay, they're showing me the solar plexus chakra now. This is why you have the shadow in your solar plexus chakra, because basically you need to learn how to stand on your own 2 feet and be in your own power while still being in some form of relationship, right? If something is happening within the relationship that is not okay with you, that you are not good with, then it needs to be spoken. It needs to be communicated. If there is something in the relationship that is working for you, then that also needs to be communicated. It needs to be a place where you are not just accepting what is for the sake of having the situationship continue. Okay. The biggest question I have for you though is, do you know what you want out of this relationship?
I know what I would like out of the relationship, but I also am realistic, or trying to be realistic about the fact that maybe that's not a possibility. I kind of giggled when you said she's got to work through it on her own, because I have been working through it. I think there's been, even just in the past few months, just some recognizing and trying to work through it in a different way. So I'm more at peace with actually exactly what you just said, saying the yeses and the nos, and this is okay, this is not okay, and kind of letting things fall out the way they're going to fall out, knowing that I'm putting up the boundaries that I am, as opposed to sort of blindly wanting or feeling like I'm like being drawn to him. So I think it's interesting that we have the soul contracts that have been repeated, but we have no soul connection anyway.
Yeah, it's funny because I was feeling that from you in terms of the fact that you feel like you have a soul connection. And when the information came in that they do not have a soul connection, I hesitated in saying it to you because I was like, is there something else? Is there more information? And they're like, no, there isn't more information. This is just it. They don't have a soul connection. And I was like, oh, all right, I guess I got to say it. It's like a lot of times when I feel like it's the information that they're giving me is sort of almost like going against what feels correct for what is going on. I do have a tendency to inquire further before I actually say it. Let's put it that way. It can feel like that because of the fact that he is clinging to your energy, right? It feels like a soul connection. It feels similar because of that, because he's just like, oh, this energy is really great and I want to hang on to it. There's a difference. And I want you to close your eyes for a moment and I want you to feel into your heart space. And I want you to make this connection from that point of light that's above your head, and imagine that point of light diving all the way down through your head, all the way down into your heart space, and connect with your heart. And this is where I want you to feel into the connection. And what does it feel like for you? And just let me know when you're ready.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. So what did you feel?
I felt the way that I've described this to other people, the only way I can verbally communicate it is just for some reason, I have this unconditional, I guess, love for him.
Mm-hmm.
So it feels, when we are together, like it feels safe, it feels warm, it feels easy. We get along really well, like energetically, it feels really great. It's just in the moments where that's not happening, because he has this avoidant personality where it's like, I pull you in. So it actually goes with everything you've said. Like he pulls me in, we have a great time, and then he gets scared and pushes me away. That's sort of the pattern, which he is recognizing now. I think part of the lesson or the journey or the thing that I'm working through now and have maybe realized over the last 6 months or so or more is you can have unconditional love for somebody, but not necessarily be with them potentially.
Yeah.
And so I guess I'm trying to figure out what that means and looks like for us, because I compare it to this other guy that I met a few years ago who I love very deeply, but do I see myself in a relationship with him or like as a life partner? No, but they're these two different types of love that I have. And so I think there's a lot of just me learning about what those things are, how they're different, why they're different, and what boundaries I need to put up in different areas in order to sort of move forward in whatever way.
And often unconditional love is something that people look at as accepting bad behavior.
Yeah, it's annoying.
That's not what unconditional love is. Unconditional love is accepting the person as they are, loving them as they are, flaws and all, dark side and all. That does not necessarily mean they need to be in your three-dimensional experience, depending on what is happening. You can love everything about the person and everything about the soul and still decide, hey, I understand your avoidant tendencies, and I really want you to find your way through that. I cannot help you with that. You need to work through that on your own. That's work that you need to do. I can love you through it, but I can't be here for it because it's giving me whiplash in terms of, the back and forth, not being able to have a solid connection on a regular basis. And that is if that's something that you desire. And that's why I asked you earlier if you knew what you wanted out of the situation, because there are times when we don't necessarily want that full-time solid commitment at all times, right? Sometimes we're looking for something a bit more casual. Sometimes we're looking for just, some experience, right? And I'm talking about soul experience. If you know what you want out of the connection, and that's not happening right now, there's nothing that you can do to make that happen. If you've had all the conversations, if you've had all of the communications and things still have not shifted or changed yet, he hasn't started doing the work, then that can be a decision that you make to walk away until such time as, and still have that unconditional love for him. Now, if he has started doing the work, then that's a decision you also have to make. It's like, okay, well, can I endure this for a period of time? That's something you have to decide. What we avoid in unconditional love is operating out of our wounding. They do something, we get hurt, we run away, right? That's the basic template that has been going on in relationships for centuries. You do something to me, I get hurt, I run away, or I withdraw, or I don't communicate, or I get angry, and vice versa. To be in a relationship where you're able to communicate, hey, when that just happened, I was really hurt, and I was hurt because of X, Y, and Z. I've gone back, I've meditated on it, I've thought about it, I've ruminated on it, whatever you do. And this is why I was hurt by what just happened. And when you do this process, you realize the things that you really do need and the things that you don't. So one of the examples would be, we have this need now in modern society for a relationship, for our partners to text us back immediately. We text and they don't text back in an hour or a day or 3 days. We get really irritated or angry because why aren't they paying attention? So what is really going on there? What is going on deeper, right? Is it because you need that attention? Is it because you need that communication? Is it really communication? Because I will argue that most text messaging is not necessarily real communication. It is little shreds of communication, but it's really difficult to have a heart-to-heart, heart-led conversation over text message. You can connect to the things that you really do need out of a relationship through these experiences. So what exactly do I need? What exactly do I prefer to have in a connection? What are just things that my friends or other people are telling me, oh, well, if he's not doing this, then he clearly is not interested. We get a lot of that kind of all or nothing talk from society and from friends and from other people. And if we don't know what we want in our own hearts in terms of the relationship, then we can kind of take all of that stuff on from other people and make sort of snap judgments on somebody who might actually be putting in the work, who might actually be doing what they're trying to do, but maybe it's just not going as fast as you want it to. All of these things are to say, these are the assessments you need to make within yourself and decide, okay, is this something I can live with for the time being while we work through this? If it is, great. If it's not, then you can make the decision to step away for a time being. How does that feel for you?
I mean, everything that you said resonates. I feel like a lot of times, just in general, people project their feelings and emotions on me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, hey, I understand that you're feeling that way, but please don't push that on me.
Yeah.
And especially to your point in relationships, and probably it's hard for me because I haven't really had a lot of solid relationships. Like, I mean, partner relationships in that way, not friendships, whatever, in this lifetime. And so it's easy to your point, get information and have other people's opinions come in and then have it be like, oh, well, maybe I should be pissed off about that. Or, oh, maybe I should do this. When in reality, most of the time, I'm kind of like, okay, well, I understand that. But for some reason, like I'm choosing to do this or I'm going to do this. And one of the things that you said, which I really appreciated, was don't let me or anybody else tell you like what you should be doing and shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
You know yourself. And so you just have to trust in that and move forward. That's what I've been trying to do. And I think I'm finally, and I say finally, knowing that this could probably go on for another year or so, but finally to a point where I'm putting those boundaries in action and saying, okay, if this is your capacity to be in my life, then this is that sliver you can be in for now. And I will continue onward this way. And as relationships come, et cetera, like I'll accept those things and see if those are the things that I'm going to move forward with. Or if you are, like I think you are, starting to do the work and it ends up working out, that's for another time. It's clearly not going to happen anytime soon. If this was 10 years ago and I was going through the same situation, I'd be a little bit less, I don't know if nervous is the right word, but maybe nervous. Getting older, I'm like, ugh, am I still really like, am I doing this now? And do I need to just completely cut this off for whatever reason if I do want to get married and have kids and blah, 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 because of the physical, aspects of that. And so that's kind of where I'm like, do I let things take their course and just naturally go with my gut and see what happens? Or do I make a decision to, cut something off or make a snap judgment, which clearly you said that my soul doesn't do well with because I'm worried about timeline.
And also with like things that happen, like snap decisions like that, you also second guess yourself. Like you're like, wait, did I make the right decision? I don't know. The thing is that when it comes to what he's doing and the work that he's doing, it is important for him to go away to do his work because it's hard for him to do his work when he's in your energy field, because when he's in your energy field, everything's clear and he's like, ooh, I feel great. Everything's amazing, and it's not until he's out of your energy field that he's like, oh, this is the stuff I need to work on. Oh crap. These are old feelings that are popping up. And so it's like the back and forth is almost necessary because when he's in your energy field, it's like you're creating this beautiful space for him and he doesn't have to do the work in that space. This is your sole purpose. This is what you do. But this is also going for a lot of people who are on this ascension process, who have cleared their energies, who are in higher energies, who are in these really beautifully loving, unconditionally loving energies. They have people coming in going, oh, when I'm with you, it's amazing because, I feel so great because your energy is so amazing. And then they go away and then they go home and they feel like shit because they're left with all of their energy that they had before. So it's almost like, that euphoria, like going and experiencing something so euphoric and then coming back down after a high, and that's kind of what's happening in that energy. They have to work on that themselves. And there's not a whole lot that you can do about it in terms of how quickly they work on it, when they work on it, all of those things. It's just a matter of, like you said, making the decisions that are aligned for you and making those decisions based on the fact that that you have worked through it in your heart, in your energy field, like, okay, this is what I'm truly moving towards. And I know that I'm not getting that right now. And how am I not getting that? Right. All of those things in which you're not getting what you need, understand that you deserve them, understand that you can have them, And where does it come to a point where you're telling the universe that you're okay accepting what you have? That is the biggest thing when it comes to manifestation, is that if you're continually telling the universe, I'm cool with the situationship, I'm not worried about having anything more than this because I keep on going back to it, then you just continue to get more of that from the universe. So then if you're able to stop and say, okay, well, actually, no, I'm kind of done with the situationship right now. I want an actual connection, somebody who's there for me equally, then you have to start turning away from the things that you don't want. And that's where the manifestation steps in, right? So there's multiple layers to all of this. And there's a lot of inner exploration you're going to need to do to identify whether it is something that you want to continue with right now or not.
Okay.
And you don't have to make that decision now. Like you said, you're like, I might continue this for another year and a half before I make a decision. That's fine. There's no hurry. You don't need to hurry with this. It's just a matter of, okay, well, what am I going to learn from this? What am I getting from this? And if you're still learning from a relationship, you're still getting something from it. It's still serving you in some way. If you're learning more about you and what you're willing to move through with another person, if you're learning who you are in a situation like this, if you're learning how to really stand in your own power and clear that solar plexus, then yeah, it's still serving you. Does that help?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. The one thing that I want to reiterate is just the avoidance of the outside narrative. So many times in movies and stuff like that, they have a lot of this. It's like, oh, well, the guy does one bad thing and, oh, well, you need to dump him. He's horrible because he didn't call you back, or because there was like one mistake that happens and all of a sudden he's a total ass and you need to get rid of him. That sort of judgment, there is no place for that anymore in unconditionally loving relationships. And nor has there ever been a place for it in unconditional love, but it's been such a huge narrative as the pendulum swings in one direction of women standing in their power, and I'm all for it. There comes a time where they're standing in your power, and then there's a time when you are actually cutting off all energy just because of your hurt and anger. And you have to make sure you're not standing in that energy.
Yeah, which I feel like is a lot of society today.
It is. It is. And it'll come back to its balance. It's just, the pendulum is swinging one way, it'll go back the other way, and then it'll come into balance at a certain point. But the only thing that we can do is try to keep our own balance within ourselves, within the chaos of that, right?
Yeah. No, just I'll finish learning through it and I'll know when it's over.
Okay.
Or not over, but yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Because you never know. People can surprise you.
Yeah, I think it's just maybe the pressure that I'm putting on myself, which probably comes from outside too, right? Because it's like, it's been 6 years, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, I have known for 6 years. You're right. And I've probably cut him off for half of that period of time. So it's just like, but it's just going through it. And I feel like I am learning. I think I just need to figure out how to meditate and connect better, because my mind goes in a million different places, to really make sure being in tune with how I'm feeling.
Yeah, that makes sense. The one thing that they're showing me right now too is just to remind you that people do change. The narrative that people put out there, which is, oh, nobody changes. People just don't change. People don't change. It's like the biggest fallacy, because it is literally the only thing we do is change. Change is a constant. It's always happening. It's always evolving. Do certain people's behavior stay the same? Yes, of course. But you're not looking at it from the big picture. You're not looking at it from multiple lifetimes over multiple lifetimes. We've all been changing and evolving this entire time. It's just, if you're looking at one period of time and it looks like you're stagnant, maybe it's just because you're going through a really stagnant phase where you're not doing a lot of rapid change. But people do change. It's not to sit there and wait for that change to happen. You have to see evidence of that change happening. Otherwise, you end up waiting forever. But it's one of those things where you have to get out of the waiting energy, move forward with your life, and allow that change to happen for that person within that person. And then see if you can come together either again or, continue forward.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. You had the question about him and your soul purpose. And then the other question was about life, the universe, and everything.
Yeah. All of things connect.
Yeah.
I am curious, knowing that he isn't a soul connection, and like knowing the connection that I feel with him. And I don't know if this is an okay question to ask, but are there any other like soul connections that I have in my life right now? Just so I can not compare them, but you know what I mean? Like just start to understand maybe.
They want me to be a bit more clear in my words. Okay. By soul connection, meaning that, so soul connection can mean many, many, many different things. You can have soulmates. You can have somebody you have a soul contract with. You can have
twin flames. You can have all kinds of different things. Okay. The one thing they wanted me to be clear about is that you don't have a soul connection from the standpoint of being twin flames. Okay. I'm not sure if you know what that is.
I do. That's what I thought was.
Okay. Got it. They want me to be clear in my words and saying that no, you are not twin flames. And it's not very often that they will tell me a flat yes or no in terms of a connection. They will usually give me the soul origin and show me where the soul origin started and things like that. And, then I can sort of make my assessments based on what they show me. For whatever reason, they wanted me to know that absolutely not, it is not. And that's a good thing, actually. That's a really, really good thing, because the twin flame journey is difficult. It's very arduous. It's a lot of pain that you have to go through, that you have to sort of move through on your own. So being able to be in a space where you have a soul contract with this person. So it's not that you're not connected. It's that you have the soul contract together. You're here to help each other work through this specific thing. And then after the soul contract is done, you can decide to be together or not be together. It's up to you. Okay. So there's that free will in there. So when you ask, are there other soul connections that you have? Yes, absolutely. You have several other soul connections that you could potentially have in your life in terms of a romantic partner. The thing is, though, is that you have to go through this first.
Right.
So this is actually what's going to help you have that beautiful partner. And yeah, okay. I can see this now. I can see why you would see this as a twin flame, though, because it is operating almost identical to that energy. Like a lot of times in a twin flame journey, you do have to work on yourself. You have to work through your own shadow. You have to do all of the things. And then once you come out of it, then you have this beautiful energy that you can then connect with another person, and whether it's your twin flame or not. And so it's very similar. It's all, when it comes to some of the terminology, that's why I keep on using the term soul connection, but that's why they corrected me, because they didn't want me to be so vague, because there's so much more out there in the universe in terms of soul connections than we even realize. And so people have a tendency to get stuck on one piece of terminology or one piece of identifying traits, if you will, one identifying trait, two identifying traits. And they say, okay, well, we've got to be soulmates, or we've got to be this, or we've got to be that. And there's so many different other things going on in the universe that we don't quantify. And so to identify as one thing or another kind of almost does us a disservice. So yeah, you do need to learn this lesson with him before you're able to move on. And when, like I said, when you move on, it either might be with him or it might be with somebody else. It just depends on how things go.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's a good point, though, because we do put labels on things to help ourselves understand them. And I think that's kind of where I was coming out with my initial question. It's just like, okay, does God equal the universe? Like, what does soulmate really mean? What, like all of those different things. And you're right. There's so many different words that people use to help describe things, but it's like, what are the things that are actually very similar, and what does it actually all mean?
Yeah.
Which is a big question.
The thing that I've seen the most is that divine source love is pure, unconditional, highest light source love. And that's all there is. That's all that exists. All the variations of that energy is whether or not that energy has been brought down by experience of darkness, or experience of duality, or experience of various different planets, stars, whatever. Energy changes based on its experience. So I have seen clients where they're born out of a supernova. That's going to be a different trajectory and energy than somebody who's just very gently breaking off from divine source energy to go have an experience. Okay. There's so many different things, and I have barely scratched the surface, I feel, in terms of all of the clients that I've worked with over the years. So from my corner of what I have seen, when you asked about astrology, I really do truly believe that astrology is a roadmap. It can tell us the story of our past lives. It can tell us the story of where we've been, what we're here to do now, and what our potential trajectory is. I do believe in transcending your astrology, that just because your astrology says one thing about you in this lifetime doesn't mean that that's always going to be true for the rest of your life. I feel like it is a roadmap that says, hey, like, this is what you could run into. this is where you have a propensity for X, Y, and Z. You can either choose to continue down that path or you can change it. And it's the same with future telling. When I used to get future telling readings way back in the beginning of my journey, I would get the reading and I'd be like, oh my gosh, this sucks. I can't believe that's going to happen. And then I would realize later on down the road that it's like, actually, that wasn't a prediction of what was going to happen. It was more of a saying, hey, this is what's going to happen if you don't change your course. And I didn't know initially that I could change my course, that I had the ability to change that course. And there are certain things that are fixed. We do have certain fixed points. But in the grand scheme of things, there are a lot of choices that we can make in this free will. And those free will choices can put us on different paths. So we do have the ability to change. We do have the ability to change the course of where we're going and what we're going to do.
Yeah. It's also interesting because like what you're saying, there's fixed points. But then I always, whenever I speak with whomever else, not as necessarily a tell me my future kind of thing, but as like, what do I need to hear right now kind of a thing that's going to help me on my path to make whatever choices I make.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm always just like, I don't really want you to tell me what could or should or whatever would happen. Just what do I need to hear so I can continue to grow and figure out whatever the hell I'm here to figure out.
Exactly. Have you listened to the podcast that I have?
I haven't. I was looking right before this call and I was like, ooh, there's so many things I need to put in and listen to.
You'll be able to get the answers to a lot of those questions by listening to the podcast. I do cover quite a few of these topics throughout the course of, I don't know, I think there's probably 100 and something episodes. You can just sort of flip through and see the subject matters that really reach out to you.
Okay.
That'll help you to get a wider picture of what I've seen. And I do want to preface that by saying that this is just my corner of the universe, right? This is just what I have seen, what the guides have shown me, what I have experienced with my clients. And so I always say that I am always open to changing, to being wrong, to having more information that might give us a bigger picture, all of that. I'm always open to any of that. And I encourage other people to be just as open, because the thing is that once we settle on one particular thing and say, this is how it is, and this is how blah, 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 that's how we get really stuck into things. Because if you get really adamant about something being a particular way, it can be very challenging to move forward and change your opinions as you get new information. So I do like to say that when it comes to your experience, always feel into your heart as to what resonates for you while you're listening. Okay. So what other questions do you have?
I don't really know if there's a specific question that I have. It's just, this is why I struggle with, like, everybody's like, come in with a question. I'm like, I know, but I don't know what I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what to ask.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. We can also ask if there's anything that you need to know that you're not asking. So that's also a question that can be asked.
Well, maybe we should just ask that question then. That makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So let me see what they're showing me. I'm not quite sure what that means. Can you please give us some clarification, please? Her parents have done their job with her so far. They've accomplished the things that she needed for her trajectory in this life. What we were showing you was simply her contribution and his contribution, and the fact that they have completed it and they're watching move forward on her path, and they're staying behind because they do not need to be involved in that soul path any further. They've done what they needed to do. It's not to say that she's not having a relationship with her parents on a 3D level. This is more on a soul level, that they don't need to do anything more or anything further for her. And they were showing me your dad as like almost like a very jovial type of person, like laughing a lot. Your mom a bit more serious. Are they still together?
Yeah, they're celebrating their 50th next year.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm seeing them almost like sort of arm in arm, and they're just watching you from a distance live your life. They have a pretty hands-off approach. Like, they're not trying to control you. They're not trying to involve themselves in your life in an intrusive type of way. It's like, I feel like they give you your space.
They do.
Yeah. I'm not seeing anything else regarding them that is pertinent. Oh, although, okay. What did you think of their marriage growing up? What did you feel about it?
I just felt like it was a traditional, like a good, loving relationship. They didn't really fight a whole lot when I was younger. Dad was the breadwinner. Mom stayed home. I feel like now that I've gotten older and I've learned more things, my mom has narcissistic tendencies. And I feel like I'm a lot more like my dad in a lot of ways. Not that my mom really loves my dad, don't get me wrong, but it's just like my dad loves my mom so much. Sort of that unconditional thing that you said, it's somewhat like, is it unconditional if it's, not always great, but he loves her so much and he loves his family so much. And so I think they're a good, I guess, model of what a partnership and relationship can be in terms of being very different, but working through things, being in a true partnership. My mom gives in different ways than my dad gives. And it's less on the surface, if that makes sense. Not to say that my dad's giving of love isn't deep and meaningful in its own way. My mom's just kind of tricky because maybe it's the narcissism, but because it seems to seemingly so self-centered, you're just like on a regular basis. But then in those moments that matter, she's 1,000% there and then some.
One of the things I wanted to ask you real quick, does your father have a tendency to overgive?
Totally.
Okay, so we'll talk about that in a moment. Continue.
I think my parents did the best that they could with what they were given. And I think they did a really good job parenting. And it's interesting to me because I'm one of 5. I feel like they have this huge negative view of my parents and what their ability was to give us growing up. And not in terms of like monetary things, we were spoiled, but just in terms of emotional, whatever. I feel like there's a lot that's being projected on my parents that's unfair. And I find that interesting because I'm like, we all grew up in the same household. Why don't I have the same animosity that you do? So yeah, and I know everybody has their own unique experiences, right? And it's all perspective, and maybe there's something that they need to work on, and they just happen to be blaming my parents right now or whatever it is. But it's just sometimes it's hard to watch because I'm like, stop taking it out on them.
Right.
They're in their 70s. Get over it.
Sometimes it'll trigger us in different ways. One of the things that is really hard for people to accept is that people pleasing and overgiving is very, very toxic behavior. And I want to be clear about this in terms of when you are dealing with somebody who is a people pleaser and who is overgiving. The person who is on the receiving end of that may not necessarily be a narcissist. It might have like behaviors that look like that. When somebody is an overgiver, and this is from personal experience, I used to be a chronic overgiver. And the problem with that is you're not actually asking the other person what they need. You're just dumping things on them that you think that they would love or that they need, right? Mm-hmm. And that can create anxiety. It can create not necessarily being grateful, frustration. It can create all kinds of things. Because what if your mom's needs aren't getting met because she's getting all of these things from your father, but it's not any of the things that she needs? Well, she may not be even speaking up about what her needs are. She may not even know what her needs are. But all she knows is that what she's getting is not what she wants. Now, this is just an example of how something like that can play out. I'm not saying this is exactly how it's playing out with your parents, but that's pretty much what can happen, okay? Because overgiving creates an imbalance in the connection. Being able to stand back and ask the person, hey, what is it you need right now? And they can come back and say, well, I need this and this and this. Okay, great. I can either decide that, yes, I can give this to you, or no, I don't have the capacity to give this to you right now. That's the new template and the new framework for relationships now, because in order to be in an unconditionally loving relationship, you have to be able to communicate these needs and not just assume or basically say, oh, well, you have to be a mind reader. You should know what I want. Well, how is the other person supposed to know if you've never told them or if you don't even know yourself? So the days of just doing things for the sake of doing things without actually checking in with the other person, without having this communication, are hopefully numbered, because it's not serving us anymore in terms of relationships, in terms of connections. Of course, there's nothing wrong with doing nice things for people, buying somebody flowers sometime or giving them a phone call and saying, hey, I was just thinking of you. How are you doing? Things like that are beautiful. What we're talking about here is the over giving and giving too much of yourself, because then what that also creates in your father or somebody who is over giving is resentment, because, well, I'm giving you all of these things and I get nothing back, or I get very little back. Well, the person didn't ask for all of those things to begin with. And if you actually checked in with yourself and said, okay, do I have the capacity or the bandwidth to give as much as I am? You might come up with the answer, well, no, actually, I don't. I need to take time for myself right now. And that creates a much more balanced situation.
Yeah, I would love it if he did that.
Yeah. So it's something that you can, if you wanted to, if he's
open to it, you could have this conversation with him about overgiving. There are probably a gazillion books out there that you could find that would be talking about recovering people pleasers, right? Any of this information could help him change the trajectory of where he is, even at the age of 70. It doesn't matter. I've seen people change within years, even in their 70s and 80s. It's worth having a conversation with him about to see if he's open to it. If he's not open to it, that's fine. You don't have to worry about it, but you can just say, hey, this is some information that I came across. What do you think? And see what his response is. And they're saying to me that this is some of the stuff that your siblings actually respond to, that this is why they have these sort of negative feelings, is because they're feeling into the versions of themselves that can relate to that resentment on both sides. They also don't feel like it was an example of a good relationship, a good or balanced relationship. And the difference is that because of your soul nature, the fact that you are able to clear energy pretty well, your experience of your parents is much different than their experience has been. And that's just because of the nature of your soul.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, cool. This is something that we encourage everyone to do, but you specifically, is to find some more things that bring you joy. We see sometimes that you can take a more apathetic approach to life. And it's not necessarily something that is bad from time to time. There is a moment in which you can go from relaxing, meditating, let's say, taking time for yourself, to then being stagnant. And that stagnancy can kind of continue longer past the time than it needs to. So what we recommend is for you to check in with yourself, check in with your heart, and ask what it is that you need in that moment. If you need to go out and have a good time and find something to do, then do it. You can have a tendency to talk yourself into not doing things because you are perfectly fine with doing what you're doing. Try new things, expand what you deem as an activity that would be fun. Allow yourself to be surprised. There's a specific type of monotony that is happening, and your soul doesn't do well with monotony. And so you might feel occasionally this feeling of needing to get up and do something, but you don't know what to do. We recommend that maybe you have a running list of things that you could do, that you would want to do, but maybe you're not going to do right now, but maybe you'll do at a later time. So when you have one of those moments where you feel like you need to get up and do something, you go to the list and you say, okay, well, what can I do? What can I make plans for? And you'll already have something that you have written down that you want to try or that you want to do. There's an element of overwhelm that happens sometimes too, because there are so many things that could be done that you just give up and don't do any of them. Take time to really feel into where you are at any given moment. This is not a message that is going to be detrimental or that is about anything having to do with your life or soul purpose. This is simply about your day-to-day enjoyment of life. And you just need to have more of that. It's why you all are here, to learn, but to also have enjoyment, to experience new things. Okay. So do you have some things that you've wanted to do or that you can think of that you're like, oh yeah, I've always wanted to do that, and you just never have?
Yeah, sure. I've got a laundry list of things.
Beautiful. Start doing them.
Yeah.
And you don't need to do all of them at once. You can do one a month, one every couple of weeks. It doesn't matter. Just can make sure that you're actually stepping up and doing them, because we can put it off for quite a while because life gets in the way. Plans get in the way. Okay. What else? We want you to recognize the work that you've done thus far. You did say at the beginning of this session that you don't feel like you've done a lot of work, but you know that you have. We want you to acknowledge this for yourself. We want you to give yourself the credit for everything that you've done so far for your own life. You've done a spectacular job thus far in following your path. Keep on doing what you're doing. Everything that you're doing is improving this life exponentially. It may feel like it's not going as fast as you want to in terms of your progress, but when you look at it from our perspective, it's beautiful to see. It's almost an upward climb in terms of your progress. You were stagnant for some time, and now there's this great big spike of progress that you've made in this lifetime, and it's something that you will be very grateful for when you cross over from this lifetime. It sets you up really well for the next. Don't worry too much about other people's experiences. You do have a tendency to empathize with other people's experiences and what they've gone through. You can have a tendency to take those on for yourself and think that they are something that you might experience, which creates worry. And we want you to make sure that you separate that from your energy field, because it is not your journey. That's their journey. And we're specifically speaking about your sister at this moment. There is nothing for you to worry about. You can simply ask us for more help if you would like. We can help you in the day-to-day. You can also keep in mind that there are any number of energies out there that can help you
You can ask us to send you the people, the souls, the energies that are going to be supportive for you. Okay. Thank you. Do you have a practice of asking your spirit guides, your angels for help?
I've gotten a little bit better at it, but I'm pretty shit at it, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard sometimes. I forget myself sometimes. So yeah, one of the things that you can do is kind of change it up every once in a while. So like one of my favorite things recently was, and actually I got this from a client of mine that he's been doing this recently, which is like, thank you, universe. Thank you, angels, for surprising me today, for giving me wonderful, beautiful surprises. Another thing, thank you for sending people into my life that can love and support me on my journey. Thank you for giving me the opportunities that are going to help me along my path. Things like that. Have fun with writing what you want to write and asking them for help with what you want help with. Okay.
Okay. This is pretty general. Thank you, angels and spirit guides in general. I don't need to necessarily like name anybody. It's just like, thank you to the better. Oh, okay.
No, I didn't even know my angels' names for a long, long time. And actually, there's a couple of angels that still haven't told me their names. So the thing is that actually names are just for us. They're not actually specific. I mean, they are to certain energies. So like, for example, Archangel Michael is such an energy that like, yes, he's Archangel Michael. Our guardian angels, sometimes if they're ancients, they can have a name and it is actually a name that they choose to go by. But for the most part, it's an energy we're connecting to. It's not necessarily a person. They could be named any number of things, right? So a lot of times the names are just for us to refer them by, but I like to refer to my guides by energy versus by name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to close the Akashic Records. Thank you so much to Akula, my Akashic Guide. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for giving us all the information that we needed to know today. Thank you to Archangel Metatron and Archangel Sandalphon for being here as well and allowing us access to the records. The records are closed. The records are closed. The records are closed. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
You're very welcome. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
I have so much gratitude to Hannah for not only trusting me with her journey, but then also allowing me to record it for the podcast. Let's dive right into the subject matter of avoidant attachment styles. I've had a lot of experience with clients on both sides of this attachment style. So the receiving end, as well as the avoidant or the dismissive avoidant themselves. And there is something that I would like to shed some light on. Dismissive avoidants have a tendency to get a particular reputation of being horrible, mean, not kind in terms of thinking about somebody else or thinking about the other person, of just being flat out rude. And it could not be further from the truth. I have a particular client I've been working with for a very long time, and they are a dismissive avoidant. And the amount of shame, the amount of pain and sadness and judgment that goes on within that person is absolutely heartbreaking. What happens when somebody is avoidant? It has to do with what is going on within them, and it doesn't have a whole lot to do with what is going on with the other person. And that is why oftentimes people will look at that as selfish or bad behavior, which it can come off that way, certainly. But if you think about if somebody is depressed or in anxiety, it is very unlikely that that person is going to be able to think about somebody else or wonder how that other person is feeling, because they are so wrapped up in their own experience that it is very, very difficult to even outstretch your energy to feel into how somebody else is feeling. Imagine it like a closed little bubble within your energy field, and you can't even possibly see beyond your own bubble. Can this come off as selfish? Certainly, it could come off as selfish, but you have to understand the root reason behind it. If you take somebody who is a dismissive avoidant, it is likely that they are behind the scenes hurting, have a lot of fear, have a lot of self-hatred, have a lot of shame and guilt. And guilt especially because they feel guilty over the behavior that they're exhibiting, because it's not that they're oblivious to it, they know, but they have almost no ability to stop the behavior, because the only thing that they are doing is trying to get through themselves and survive. So oftentimes what will happen, and in this case with one of my clients, what happens is they will become vulnerable, let's say, with a partner. And the second they become vulnerable, they see that as danger. And so instead of just sitting in that vulnerability, they will pull away from their partner, even though their partner has done nothing wrong, but they feel vulnerable, which says to them that is dangerous. And so they will retract their energy. They will walk away. They will break up. They will stop the conversation. They will do whatever they can to remove themselves from the situation to avoid being rejected by the other person based on them being able to see who they truly are. And that is a lot of that fear that comes in, is being seen for who they truly are and then being rejected. So it is a vicious cycle of possibly being vulnerable, possibly being seen. Maybe it's a situation where they weren't vulnerable, but another person is able to see who they truly are. That can be really scary, especially if you don't want people to see who you are, especially if you're ashamed of who you are, or if you have self-hatred. All of these things are kind of going on behind the scenes that you are not seeing. Now, of course, every situation is different. So this is going to look different with different people, different wounds, different behaviors, all of those things. But understand that it is very, very unlikely, if you are dealing with a dismissive avoidant attachment style, it is unlikely that that person is just being mean to you for the sake of being mean. There are people out there that are like that, sure, but I haven't met very many of them. Most of the people that I've met or worked with that are dismissive avoidant are deeply, deeply wounded. And however their wounding started, whether it was in a past life or current life, whether it was in a relationship or their parents, it doesn't really matter where it came from. Just understand that this behavior is created as protection. This behavior is created as a way to get through a situation that feels threatening to them. And that can be something that is so hard to understand because, especially if you're somebody who is open and willing to be vulnerable with somebody else, you might not really understand how being vulnerable can be threatening and can be scary. Somebody who is an over-communicator, let's say, and I would sort of put myself in that category in the past where I would over-communicate, I would over-give. And somebody who's in that particular space to meet up with somebody who, let's say, ghosts or doesn't message back or takes a step back or runs away when there's any type of vulnerability. For somebody who is wanting connection and sees connection as safety is not going to understand that on the surface level, because you're not going to be able to see all of the things going on behind the scenes that is going on in that person's consciousness, in their physical being, and in their brain. And so this is where compassion comes in. This is where unconditional love comes in. And like I discussed with Hannah, you can have unconditional love for these people. You can help them in the way where you are holding that space for them and not judging them, because I can guarantee you they are used to somebody saying to them, you're an asshole, you're this, you're that, I can't believe you, you're a narcissist. All of those words, I'm sure that your dismissive avoidant has heard in spades. But likely what they haven't heard is, I accept you for who you are. I am not willing to accept this behavior, but I have compassion for what you're going through. It is likely they have not heard those words. Now, of course, as I said, you don't need to stick around and be in this person's life if it is harmful to you, if it is psychologically damaging for you, if it is something that you feel is holding you back. It is something that is only able to change if the dismissive avoidant is willing to do the work. And even if they are willing to do the work, it takes time. Imagine that this protection that they've put up around themselves has been woven in layers and layers and layers over years and sometimes lifetimes. And if that's the case, it will take a while for this type of behavior, this protective behavior, to start unraveling. Trust will need to be built within themselves. Self-love will need to be built within. And that is going to take a lot of time and dedication for that person to be able to do that. If you are in a secure attachment style and you are with somebody who is dismissive avoidant, it is an imbalance that cannot really exist in a healthy situation unless the dismissive avoidant is actually actively doing the work. Oftentimes, a dismissive avoidant is going to be connected to an anxious attachment style, which is probably one of the most challenging connections to be in, because the anxious attachment style person is going to be seeking validation. They're going to be seeking proof of the connection from the other person. They are looking for things outside of themselves. The challenge in that is the dismissive avoidant is not going to be providing those things to you because they are trying to regulate their own nervous system in terms of what they feel safe in doing. And giving you reassurance is not something that is on their agenda. So those two attachment styles being in a relationship can be volatile, but it can also offer you a lot of growth. Oftentimes, that is what happens with partners where you are incarnated in a particular lifetime together and you're meant to learn something from each other. You're meant to break a cycle. And we have heard that in previous episodes as well, where there are clients that I've had where they're just here to break a cycle with a particular person. And so sometimes that behavior, that dismissive behavior, can be exactly the thing that hits that wounding enough where you will finally say, enough, I can't do this anymore. I need to be in a connection where somebody is present, where they respect me, where they treat me the way that I want to be treated, those types of things. So this type of attachment style can actually be very helpful for both parties in the sense that it can actually offer some real growth if both parties are willing and able to do the work. Another aspect that we touched on in this session is the fact that when somebody is in an energy that is imbalanced, such as a dismissive avoidant or an anxious attachment style, if you are a secure attachment style and you are living your purpose and you have a beautiful energy field and it's nice and big, they are going to feel amazing when they're around you. They're going to feel like everything in the world is great. And so when you see them and when you're in person with them, everything flows, everything goes great, everything seems to fall into place. The universe is just rolling out the red carpet for you. And the second they leave your energy field, they feel like crap. They don't have that magic anymore. Nothing happens in that way anymore. And the reason why is because they are in your energy field and their energy field is being amplified by yours. And so therefore they have this ability to experience all these incredible, amazing things that they're not able to accomplish on their own because maybe their energy field isn't that big. Maybe their energy field is full of psychic debris. Maybe their energy field is being fractured by soul fragments, or maybe it's being hidden, or they've built up walls around their energy field. There are so many different things that can happen when you have somebody who is a dismissive avoidant. That can add to the challenge for this person, because if they see that they are magic in your energy field, but then when they're on their own, they come crashing down. It's like a drug. It's like being on a drug and then coming down off that drug. And so they may feel worse about themselves when they leave your presence. This can happen in any connection where somebody is in a higher frequency than the other. And this happens all the time. It just depends on the discrepancy of how large that difference is in frequency as to how each person is going to feel. I'm sure many of you have experienced this where if you are in a room full of people who are, let's say, in a much lower frequency than you might feel drained. You might feel tired. You might feel like you need to leave. And that's something that is very common for you to experience and feel if you are in a room full of people who are, let's say, still asleep, not really working on their spiritual gifts, not working on their shadow work, that kind of thing. So you will experience this often on your journey. And it's just amplified when it is a romantic connection, sexual connection, a connection that is something other than just friendship or acquaintances. So pay attention to how you feel when you are with the person you're with. Pay attention to their behaviors with you and when they're not with you. Pay attention to how you feel when they are not with you, when they've withdrawn their energy. Are you reacting and responding to their energy and when they pull back their energy or not? Or are you able to keep your center whether they are with you or not? Are you able to recognize the wounding that they have and where they are in their journey and make the decision whether or not you are willing to stick around for that journey or not? These are the questions that you need to ask yourself in this particular type of situation. Not all situations are going to be the same. I'm not going to say that just because you have a dismissive avoidant in your life that you have to break up with them. And that would never be something that I would say. It is definitely an individual case-by-case basis as to how you're feeling and what the relationship is. But these are all things to be aware of, things to have compassion for, and a way of seeking the truth and what is really going on. Because oftentimes you're not going to get the truth from the dismissive avoidant. They are not typically very forthcoming when it comes to all of the feelings they're feeling inside because they feel unsafe sharing those feelings. So checking in with the energy, checking in with yourself, going into your intuition and identifying what is really going on, asking your guides, asking for help can give you some insight on how to handle the situation, how to work through the situation, and how to move forward. Now, I've talked about this a lot in the past, and it is worth mentioning again, which is the subject matter of labels. We do love labels here. We need them. We need words to communicate. It's interesting because I was just watching the movie Arrival the other day, and it's such a beautiful movie. And it is about communication and how we communicate. And one of the things in the movie is that the aliens in the movie are communicating via symbols and energy. And it was the way in which they were trying to communicate that created some misunderstandings. And once those misunderstandings were cleared up, they were able to get to the truth of the matter. And I feel the same way about labels and what we call ourselves, what we identify as, using terms like narcissist, twin flame, dismissive avoidant even, puts us into categories that may not actually fit. When we talk about narcissism, it's become that buzzword of when anybody has any bad behavior at all that seems selfish, it's like, oh, that's a narcissist. I'm here to tell you that is absolutely not the case. The Mayo Clinic definition of narcissistic personality disorder is a mental health condition in which people have an unreasonably high sense of their own importance. They need and seek too much attention and want people to admire them. That is just one small clip from the definition. Most of the time when somebody is in a space of being selfish or self-involved, or as I would say, feeling like the world revolves around them, there are subtle differences. As I mentioned earlier in the discussion about depression and anxiety, I have had a lot of experience with people who have depression and anxiety who are very self-focused because they cannot think of anyone else. They cannot even give to anyone else because they can barely function on their own, or they can barely get through their day if they're going through a rough patch. Those types of things. So if you are asking for somebody to give you attention or be present or be in a healthy connection with that person, and they're in a state of anxiousness or depression and they don't show up for you, you just call them a narcissist? It makes no sense because that is absolutely not what's going on there. So you really need to do your homework in terms of these types of terms and identify what that actually means. Now, can a person actually be a narcissist? Yeah, of course they can. But I feel like the term is used so loosely that it's actually just become an insult, as opposed to understanding that narcissism in and of itself is also a psychological disorder. What this boils down to is not accepting bad behavior, not accepting behavior that you do not want to experience in your life on a regular basis. And I say on a regular basis because, of course, we all do things that are improper, mean, that we don't necessarily mean to do. Maybe we're in a bad mood. We all say things we don't mean. We all do things like this in life. I'm talking about very consistent behavior over the course of time. So, for example, in this particular instance with Hannah's parents, she was saying that her mom was a narcissist. Well, she very well may be. I can't tell whether or not her mother is or is not because I did not check into her energy. I don't know her. So it is very possible that she is. The thing that I did ask about, though, was her father and the fact that he is an overgiver. And when you have somebody who is an overgiver, if you look at it from the perspective of a balanced relationship, if somebody is pushing more of their energy onto the other person, then the other person has very little room to give to the person who is overgiving. So it creates this sliding scale imbalance of how much that person can give because the other person is giving so much. So there has to be that balance of giving and receiving, right? There almost always is a reason for these energies to come together in a relationship, and we can learn from these energies. We can learn from these experiences, and we can grow from them. And the other person that we're dealing with can also grow from them. And like I said to Hannah, it's never too late. I don't care if your parents are in their 90s. It's never too late. If they have the desire, if they have the curiosity to still learn and grow, there is still time. Lastly, the subject I would like to cover for this particular session is about evil energies. We touch on this when we look at the past life where Hannah was in the Mayan culture and she was there as a protector. She was there as a transmuter, and she was there to sort of scare off the evil spirits, right? Things were different back then. Things did not operate the way that they do now, given the fact that we are in a higher energy, a higher frequency than we were back then. So fear is a very interesting emotion because the fear of something can actually create it. It can actually create something bigger than what it actually is. And what's coming to mind right now is there was a client that I had, and I believe this story is on the podcast somewhere, where an entire village believed that if you went into the forest, that there were evil spirits in the forest, and that the church in the middle of the town created a sort of barrier of protection around the town. But if you wandered out into the forest, especially at night, that you could have these spirits attached to you. Was that true at that time? It was true from the sense that the church did create a bubble of protection around the village. So it was creating a lighter energy in the village. When you left the village and went to the forest, it was a heavier energy. It is the reason why a lot of these rituals that the Catholic Church took from paganism are things that they do, such as incense and church bells and all of these other things that clear quote unquote evil spirits, right? They use incense inside the church where they're cleansing and clearing the energy. These are all things that are utilized in order to raise the frequency or the vibration of the actual place. Was it a darker energy back then? Yes, because Earth herself had not moved forward as she has now on her ascension. So back then, the energies were darker. Back then, the fears were bigger, and there was a lot more to protect ourselves from. Now, it doesn't mean that now we don't protect ourselves, because of course there still are things that we protect ourselves from in terms of energy, but it's not as prevalent as it used to be. When it comes to energies now, it's different. So it's not the forest that we're worried about. It's actually the energy coming through our phones and through our televisions. It is the energy coming in through media, through our social contracts with the collective energy. There are all kinds of things that we protect our energy from in that respect. It just looks differently than it did back then. Now, what are evil spirits, so to speak? I've often made this analogy, and I think it's a beautiful analogy. If you've never seen the movie Soul, it's a Disney movie. I should say Disney Pixar movie. It depicts it really well from an illustrative standpoint. Everything that I've seen in terms of an evil entity or spirit or demon, if you will, is a pure divine soul on the inside. It is a pure divine soul just like you. What has happened is it has picked up layers upon layers upon layers upon layers of psychic debris based on its own experiences of shame, fear, doubt, hatred, guilt, all of those lower energies that have been built up over time, over many, many, many lifetimes potentially. And sometimes those souls get stuck and they're not able to cross over because they are not able to move past the lives that they had here on this planet. Oftentimes you will see these energies if you are somebody who can see energies. You can see these energies and the distortions they are in. Understand that they are a soul just like you. I did ask the question before I started this discussion if it is possible for these entities to exist on their own without having a core of a soul, if you will. And the answer is they can exist, but they don't last long. It's almost like a vapor. So can it attach to something else and survive? Sure, but not for a very long time. It has to have its own energy source in order for it to continue living, so to speak. Can these souls be cleared of this psychic debris and move forward in their beautiful divine soul energy? Yep, they totally can. And how does that happen? Love. This is how these souls and these evil energies dissipate, is love. And it's so counterintuitive sometimes, because if you see a person who you feel is doing evil deeds, that sending that person love seems insane. But you can ask your angels and guides to send that person love enough to help them out of the evil that they are experiencing or the behaviors that they are exhibiting. Love is literally the only way through any of these lower or negative energies. Does evil exist? Sure, absolutely it does, in all kinds of forms. Is it something that is trying to win, so to speak? No, it's trying to survive. It's not trying to win necessarily. It's trying to do whatever it can to survive and make it through. So think about it in terms of any one person who is exhibiting bad behavior. What is behind that bad behavior? What is behind that hatred or that lack of acceptance or that judgment? It's self-loathing. It's fear. It's sadness. It's grief. It's all of these emotions that start that path of moving into anger and hatred and then behavior that is based on those emotions. If these people and energies are given love, they may not be able to receive it, not right away. But the more love that is shown to them, the more love that is given to them, the more likely it is that this evil behavior will stop, or this evil spirit will be able to be in its divine energy. People have different ideas of what evil is, and it's a judgment in and of itself. But whatever you deem evil to be, I want you to think of a few things that you consider to be evil. And maybe you've come across some energies that are like that. Maybe you've come across some people that are like that. And I want you to take a moment right now. And if you are not able to send them love, that's totally fine. I understand it. But I want you to ask your spirit team, your angels and guides, if they can send this person, this spirit, this energy, some acceptance and love for this moment. Thank you so much for joining me today. Tune in next week as we go into the next session with Hannah, which is roughly about a year later. If you're enjoying this podcast, it would be really amazing if you could like, share, and subscribe. Wherever you listen to podcasts, whether it's Apple or Spotify,
Feel free to give it a review if you feel called. If you are following me on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you are notified for every single new episode of the Akashic Recordings. If you feel called to book a session with me, you can always reach me at infinitesoullove.com, and you can book directly on my website. Thank you so much for all of your support, and I can't wait to connect with you next week.